Hi everyone! See this pose, this relaxed just sitting down pose that I'm doing right now? Well, for me it's very hard to draw something like this. It is very hard for me to draw any relaxed pose. So this week my mission is going to be to learn how to draw relaxed pose. My name is Javi and I can draw. Let's go! So from all the information that I could gather regarding posing, that I know a little bit about posing, but I wanted to really focus on what makes a natural pose. I found a few things that matter. The first one is about gravity center, like finding the balance on the pose that you're going to do. I found a lot of things, but the best thing I found is a Proco video as usual. Now, the Proco video shows exactly what trying to find the center of gravity in a drawing is, and how to try to find balance, and how to figure out what is the part of the body that is bringing the most weight and the one that you should find the balance with, and it's pretty good. Now, I found something else that has to do not only with the center of balance, but with natural poses, and it's very comprehensive. This one is by Al Garcia. It is just one long PDF that is going to be linked below. It covers movement, the center of gravity, balance. It's overall pretty good. But regarding natural poses, there's the most important thing, that is the line of action. I covered the line of action in some other video, but if you're one of the new guys, you should know that the line of action is a line that defines the whole movement. Like, if your body is doing something like moving or running, there's going to be one line that is going to define that motion. My biggest problem with natural poses is that sometimes the line of action is very hard to find, because you're either like sitting down like this, or maybe you're just standing or not doing much. And trying to see how the line of action can help you build a natural pose can be pretty complicated. Now, there is a very good video about line of action. This one is made by Pan. Pan is an artist from New Zealand. She, every once in a while, she makes really good, useful videos, and she has a really good amount of tutorials on DeviantArt. So, well, she made a great video, and it's going to be linked below as well. And let me see. Finally, there is this article in Craftsy that is about actually fashion illustration, but it talks about how to draw a natural standing pose. And the main thing that it suggests is not to do the line of the shoulders and the line of the hips parallel to each other, but to try to move it just a bit. It's a very simple advice, but it's one that I get the feeling that I'm going to be using a lot this week, so I wanted to include it. Now, as I just said, all the links are going to be linked on the link below. That is going to lead you to a website of my own with the links to all you need, and also to a link to a Pinterest board where more tutorials and reference material is going to be available. Okay, so this is what I've been thinking. Imagine I'm standing like this. You're standing like this. This would be like, how does a person stand like this? Well, I think about it, and the more I think about it, I'm never standing like this. Like, this is how I stand when I'm like trying to see how much I weigh on a balance or something. But this is like a very unnatural way of standing. If I'm going to be standing with my legs parallel, they're usually going to be just a more like this. But this is also not natural. So I started thinking, like, what is the way that I usually stand when I'm doing nothing, like for example waiting the bus? And the first thing I thought about was I just break my hip just a bit, just like this, and I'm standing like here, maybe with my hands on the pocket and whatnot, and every once in a while I'll just switch it. So I started to think like, well, what is it like to do this pose, to draw this pose, to break the leg? Because I was thinking about it, and when I try to draw something natural like this, what I usually do is actually put this leg straight, and then the other leg goes behind like this, and this is not a balanced pose. Like, no one ever stands like this, and it is like a fashion photo or something, but this is not relaxed. I know that my center of gravity is still like a line going down or something, but this is not something that people usually do when they're trying to be relaxed. What they try to do is have their both feet on the ground and just stand like this. So that means that when you are breaking your hip, you're bringing this knee forward, like this. What this does is create an imbalance on the hip. Like this part is going to be higher than this part. I'm going to exaggerate it a bit when I draw it. And also to compensate for that, you're not like standing straight, you can't stand straight, but you're also going to compensate by just breaking this line. That is also something that is really used in fashion illustration. So I started to think what I do, and it's like I break the hip like this. Well, this is a natural pose, right? So what else do I do? And when I'm thinking, usually because my shoulders are hunched, and I'm always wearing like my hands here, I'm always like this. And if you see me on this side, so I can face the microphone, if you see me like this, I'm always a bit hunched like this. This is a very natural pose for me. And you can see that it is a curve that goes like this, like being like this. And this is something that, it is also a natural pose. People are like this. And you can see like the line of action is going to be drawing like an S like this, but it's going to end like that. And I'm also thinking about when I'm having crossing my arms. Since my arms are heavy, what I have to do is to bring my back forward, to arch it a bit, and in order to compensate for the weight. So this draws a curve that is more like this. Now I was thinking about that as well, and I was like, well, so what's going on with, for example, like I'm fairly skinny, and if you are someone fat, that you have a big belly, maybe, or a pregnant woman or something, I was thinking like, well, what are the two ways, or what are the ways that you can stand? And well, first, you will be arching all of this back to compensate for the weight of the belly. This is something like, I have a friend who's a rugbyer and he has a really big belly, and he's always like this. And it's like he's bringing all of this back and he's bringing all of this forward in order to like have a center of gravity like this. And the other ones is like, well, people that are more like introverted, they're not like this, but they're more like, you flex this just a bit, flex it, and you bring all of this to the back and compensate with this part. You just do the exact opposite. So you're just like this. I am exaggerating the pose just a bit. But you try to bring this back. And it's something like, it also involves like body language and whatnot. And then I was thinking, like, I saw this chair. And what happens when you are leaning on something? Well, you can see, and you see me? And you see me, all of me? You can see like, well, this line here is broken, and hip is broken like this, that these are two lines that join there. You can also, you can have all of this going towards this part because your center of gravity is going to need now like a line that goes like this because you're using this as an extra leg. And I don't know what else, like if you're leaning back on a wall or something, you can have your two legs going forward, that are not below your torso, but they can be forward because you're using this to compensate. I don't know, they're just some things that I'm thinking, what is the logic behind it all? Now, I think that, the whole center of gravity thing is important because you want to stay standing and not fall. But, okay, I want to draw this. That's what I know. What I know is that I'm going to try to draw these poses, okay? So let's go back to the computer. Okay, so what I have here are some of the poses that I just did when I was right there. And I want to deconstruct them just a bit. I'm going to be exaggerating a bit what I'm seeing to see if I can help me figure out everything. So let's go. So first I'm going to focus on line of action. So as I was saying, well, this should be pretty easy to figure out. So this one should be something like this. Actually, when I think about it, most of the standing poses should be something like this. This one is actually pretty similar. It goes something like this. This one moves like this curve. This one like this. This one is for the fat man, but it also does the same thing, like maybe just a bit exaggerated when I do the fat man. This is the second fat man that is like this. Now in this one, it moves like this in diagonal. And for this one, it would be something like this. At least that's how I feel that they should be. Now, I also wanted to do a second thing, that is try to find the gravity center on each of these ones. Now, it's always going to be a straight line. As I said before, what I believe is that the hips and the torso are going to be the heaviest parts, and those are the ones that are going to define where the gravity center is. So in this particular case, I think that it would be a line that goes like this, and this one like these two are here, so like this. In this one, it comes like from this part. In this one, see, this is here, so the center of gravity would be somewhere around here. It is not a coincidence that they land on your feet. That is actually usually what's going to happen. In this one, it is something like this. In this one, well, you have this here and you have this here, something like this. In this one, because I'm leaning on this, it's going to be somewhere around here actually. Let me see, like something like this. It still lands on one foot, but you know, the one in the middle. And for this one, it would be something like this. Like I'm still putting weight in my feet, even as I lean on something else. Now, knowing this, let's try to use this knowledge to draw them and see how that goes. I'm going to be tracing a bit because I have the photo and I want to make sure that what I'm doing is right. Or maybe I shouldn't use the photo. No, I'm going to try to remember the pose that I did because I'm going to forget. So I'm going to use the photo. Okay, so I want to see, trying to remove the influence from the photo to see how much I can exaggerate this. So this goes like this. I'm not going to like trace it. I'm going to try to get away from that so I don't get so influenced by the photo. But it's something like this. And then feet would be like this. Let me see, I'm going to get rid of this just for a bit. And here I was putting my hands in my pocket, so it would be like this. I'm going to erase this leg. I don't think that this one is right. And I'm going to do this one again, because I don't think that... Like, I'm going to try to get the basics of the pose real fast so I don't bore you. Let me just bring it here. So something like this. In this one, I'm going to get a quick glance of what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to put the head here. See, I'm going to try to do this one in the line of action. It is actually the exact same pose that I was just doing on the other one. But it's just on another angle. So I'm not trying to be super anatomical or correct. I'm just trying to get the feeling of the pose. So this is like this, so maybe this would be moving just a bit like that. I'm a bit concentrated here, that's why I'm keeping so quiet. It has been a while since I've done a video where I stayed quiet because I was concentrated drawing. It looks pretty natural, like all these wavy lines are really helping me get that natural feeling, you know? Like instead of doing like straight lines, you should just go for a wavy feeling. I think that I can help with the pose. Now, what would this one be? Let me see. I was accelerating just a bit. So this, like this, really hunching the character's shoulders, because that's what I'm usually like when I'm standing up. See, even though there's a break here in the leg and the knee, it still has this wavy feeling to it, right? And the neck forward. I think that, you know, depending how relaxed the character is going to be, how it's standing when it's relaxed, I think that has to do with the character that you're designing, if you're planning on doing this to a character you designed, and what the body language says about the character. This one, I don't know. What was it going to be? Alright. Well, this one should be just a little bit more easier. So yeah, confidence, right? With the arms crossed. I shouldn't have posed this on profile, but well, you know what? It's going to be just about the same. Let me see. If I move it just a bit, it's not like quite what I intended. But still, you know, I'm doing like super simple legs, so I don't complicate it too much, but you get the feeling, right? Like, look how different these two poses are, and both of them are pretty natural, and they would, you know, they would belong to two different persons that maybe that's just the way of standing. And I'm going to drive myself crazy with this arm crossing thing. Just, his arms are crossed. Okay, I see. This one, let's move on to the next one. And these two are for like the fat persons, right? Let me see. Yeah, more or less. So I'm going to try to do like a fatter person. I'm not usually used to drawing fat people. I don't know how good I am at it. Well, it was more of a profile thing, so it would be accentuated by the curve. This. You know, I'm here trying to draw like a fat person with you know, like broad back. I'm being super sketchy, more sketchier, you know, sketchier than usual, more sketchy than usual. Is that a thing? And they never stand. They always like really spread their legs. I'm doing this, Charlie, wrong. Those legs are wrong. See, I'm not very pleased with this one. I had to work on this one. Look! But now let's see, let's just go with the profile one here so I don't make many mistakes like the one I just did on this one. I don't like it. Let me see how it looks. Okay, it's not that bad, it could be worse. Okay, now let's try this one, which is, you know, fat but not with a lot of self-esteem. Just profile here. I don't know how comfortable I feel with the legs bending just a bit for this particular pose that I was talking about. I don't know. I think I have to work on my fat people weight distribution. It's not too good. Now these two are the leaning ones. I'm going to that. Well, if the chair is going to be here, how am I standing on this one? Like this. See, this one, the fun about this one is that you can tell how my hip is going to be rocking like this. Just hanging on this thing. Let me see, how was I? Was I like this? It looks nothing like the one I was doing, but it still applies, right? I mean, I need to move this closer to the center of gravity. And I would argue that this should be more like this. Something like this, right? No, let me see. I want to see something right. I was doing this completely wrong. I think that, no, let me see. I want to see. Right. It would be like this. This one would be kind of like, this one would be the bended one, and this one would be the straight one. It's just what I mentioned when I was standing over there, that the bended knee always is forward. Bended? Bent knee? Bended knee. I need to focus on my English lessons. And the last, this one is like this, yes. Like this. I'm sorry if any of you have any dogs, and when I whistle while I'm drawing, I make them bark. That is something that sometimes it happens. So yeah. So something like this. This is a very simplified way of posing. But the truth is that, well, all of these poses look pretty natural. I will have to work on the one on the left, but this is what I'm taking away from this whole thing, that I think that once I've edited it, it's still going to be a long video. Sorry about that. I tried to make them as short as possible, but still. What I think is that the most important things to take into account is that, well, basically the hip is always tilted into one of the legs that is going to support most of the weight. The other leg that is not going to be supporting that much weight is going to be bent forward, is going to be stepping forward just a bit. Also, remember that legs are not together, like feet are not together when you're standing, but they're going to be apart because you are trying to form a pyramid-like shape to gain stability when you're standing. Also, like, the best way to know where your character should be standing is by just getting that torso, and once you know where you want that torso, use a line to define the gravity point and try to figure out the balance using that gravity, what's its name? The center of balance. So instead of doing a lot of poses and drawing them one by one like I just did when I was showing you how to draw the standing natural poses, I decided to, well, after a bit of experimenting, I started drawing sitting poses myself, and I think I kind of nailed it. And I want to show you exactly what I was thinking when I was doing this, in order to see if there's anything else or if this is good enough. So look at this. Here are the sitting poses, but we're going to start with the first thing. Now, when we are drawing the standing poses, the first thing that we have to take into account is the gravity center. You know that I shown you, like this vertical line. Well, in this particular case, the gravity center is going to be the chair itself, because it is going to be the one that is going to be holding your body. So when I try to think like, well, if the chair is going to hold me, and that is going to be the gravity center, so to speak, you know, unless like the body's doing something ridiculous, like tilting to one side and about to fall, like we're just talking about relaxed poses here that are not doing anything weird, just sitting there. So if that is going to be the gravity center, now what is going to be the line of action? Because the problem that I always have when I'm thinking about line of action is that, well, there is a disruption here on the part where the legs are seated, that is like, well, there's no line of action, like this flowy line that goes well with that break. And well, I realized that maybe that was the best way to beat this. I can't delete this? Hello? Photoshop just crashed. As I was saying, that considering that this line is going to always be breaking there, maybe the best logical way to figure out how a person is sitting using the line of action in order to help ourselves do a natural composition is by, well, not taking into account the legs at all. Because when you think about it, in any sitting stance, the most important thing is like, what are you doing with your body? If you're leaning forward, if you're leaning back, if you're leaning to one side, and the legs, unless you're like crossing your legs or something, they're mostly going to be like just there, because, well, when you are sitting down, you're not using your legs. That's why you're sitting down. So let's do a quick recap of the lines of action that I use on each of these sitting figures. Now, they are super obvious. If you start here, it's going to be like this, then it's going to be like this. This one is standing super straight. This one is like this. This one is like this. Then maybe because I was putting the leg here, you can expand this, but And this one is going to be just curvy like this. So once I have decided how this character was going to lean, well, the only thing that I had to figure out is actually where his butt is going to be. Because, well, when you're sitting, how you're sitting, your butt may be on, you know, more forward or backward, depending on what you're going to do. And that is, remember when I was doing, maybe you haven't watched this, but I did a video on foreshortening, and I figured out that the best way to be accurate in the foreshortening is to have something that gave you context about the perspective and the camera angle that what you were using. Well, this is kind of the same, but not. What I mean by this is that since the chair is the only context that you have for the character, the best way is to figure out the most important thing that your character is going to be doing regarding that context. And since they're sitting down, the most important thing that's going to be your context about how the character is going to be sitting down is thinking where the butt is going to touch the chair. So, since this character is going to be leaning forward like this, the butt can be a lot behind. In this particular case, since the girl goes like this, is going to be just a bit forward. In this case, it's really against the back of the chair. In this particular case, since it's sitting down opposite, it's going to be somewhere like this. In this case, it is a bit more complex because I moved the hip a bit, but honestly, it's just like this. Still, what I did with this particular drawing, since they're also going to be leaning on the back of the chair, that I moved down a bit compared to the other chairs so it can be more comfortable, I started focusing maybe on this arm and how this would be. Like I tried to match these two lines. Instead of just focusing on the butt, the same thing I did kinda here, but since this pose is a little more straightforward, I still started with the butt and then moved on to the other things. And in this case, since this character is moving forward like this, the butt is going to be somewhere in the middle. And you know, regarding what to do with the legs, in most of the cases, you know, I cross the legs here in this character just to play a bit with it, but honestly, I don't think that it really affects how the rest of the body is going to react, because the most important thing is that your butt and your hips are placed in one place, and from there, you can just start moving. Like, you can cross your legs and be forward like this with your legs crossed, or leaning back with your legs crossed, and it wouldn't change. It's like that break in the hip is going to actually break your legs and the rest of you into two different, well, lines of action. So what do you think? I practiced this and I think that the logic is sound. I didn't want to waste a lot of time drawing them back again, but I'm pretty happy with the results. Okay, so this is going to be a quick one. I did some few examples trying to show you that, well, if you're actually considering the center of gravity and you're also considering the line of action of the movement and the motion that the character is going to be doing, that it actually solves those two things, solve most of the problems that you're going to get when you are trying to draw natural poses. Now, I'm going to show you just a few quick examples, and I'm looking a lot at the screen, but here I am. Okay, let's do this. So the few examples that I have here are pretty simple. The first thing that I wanted to try was someone walking. You know, when you're drawing someone walking, it mostly never looks well. I believe that the line of action of someone walking is going to be something like this. If it's, you know, a relaxed walking, a little bit hunched maybe. But the most important thing, and well, you didn't notice here, but I actually had to rotate the legs once I drew them, because I didn't feel like the center of gravity was what it should be. And well, that actually solved the problem, and I realized that I had to do that in a lot of the following drawings and in the other poses that I'm going to show you. But sometimes what I didn't understand, what I was doing wrong, is just I wasn't finding the center of gravity. So sure, now that you have a line, you can clearly define here that the center of gravity should be somewhere in the middle between the two legs. I find it super helpful. So let's just quickly do the same here. Now I wanted to do like someone asking for someone to dance, and I knew that this, like, they were going to be bowing, but also I was thinking about the weight of the arm going forward, and this one trying to like counterweight, but not so much. Like, if you wanted to counterweight, it should have been something like this, but since it's not, most of this part of the body weight is going to go forward, so this leg helps to keep the center of balance. If you are going to be drawing, like if I'm going to find the center of balance and I'm just going to focus on the ribcage and the hip, the center of balance will be somewhere like this, but it's not going to be like that because of the weight of the arm. So it's going to be more like something like this, I believe. And well, I accommodated this leg, and well, you already understand how it is. Now, these two that I wanted to show you are the two ways that I usually crouch when I have to crouch. Either bend your legs all the way and go down, or either just bend your torso and just bend your knees just a little bit. And it's the same thing. Like, well, in this one, the line of action, I wasn't thinking so much about the line of action. It would be something like this. It's not like super interesting. But on the bending here, I wanted, like, if you're bringing the torso forward just a bit as you're crouching towards your legs, you're going to be actually allowing your feet to be just below the center of gravity, just around here, just between your hips and your torso. So basically, well, you know, in this particular case, it's a nice rule of thumb to think that what you have to do is always try to keep the feet below the character, below the heaviest parts of the character. Well, most of the times that's exactly what you have to do. So, well, in this particular case, I had this line of action, and the center of gravity, I had to like do it myself, stand there and see how I crouch when I do it like this. And you know, you bend your knees just a little bit, because when you're bending your knees, you're bringing your hips to the back to compensate for your shoulders going forward, for your ribcage and your shoulders going forward, and that keeps your feet in the middle. In this particular one, I wanted to do something like I did in the bowing one. I mean, I wanted to bring something like this forward, so bringing this arm forward as well. But the more you spread the legs as you do a pose, depending on, you know, what the character is doing, if it justifies spreading the legs or not, but the more you spread the legs, the more you can start doing with your arms as well without throwing yourself off balance. So as soon as I started like spreading these legs and bringing this forward, it was pretty easy. Now for this particular one, I wanted to try to do just someone turning, in a sense that, well, maybe this foot should be somewhere like this as well. But in a way, like, you know, you're bringing your arm weight here, and at the same time you're twisting your body, like your crotch is facing this way but your eyes are facing this way, and this all twists in the middle. And well, that's it. Like, if you're going to compensate for this weight and you have your hip going this way, like, these are the three heavy things that you have to consider. So the center of gravity would be somewhere like this. Oops, sorry. What's going on? Somewhere like this. So you have to bring this leg just a bit back, just a bit, and you just have to keep this one straight. And that last, I wanted to use some like kind of superhero kind of move, because there are a lot of other poses that I want to try next week, like dynamic poses. And what I mean by dynamic poses, I mean poses where you're actually like jumping or trying to punch someone and not necessarily having your 2 feet on the ground, but you're doing something more complex that it doesn't mean that you are balanced. Like if you're jumping, when you are in the middle of the air, you're not actually balanced or things like that. So for last, I wanted to show something that had some like kind of like action, or that feels a little bit more dynamic without being something that has the character off balance. So for this one, what I thought, I was like this really Spider-Man-like pose that I really like drawing. And I thought that, well, if the body is going to be arching like this, like the hip is going to be here and the shoulder is going to be here, you can't have like, you have to bring this leg forward. You have to bring one of the feet forward if you're going to have this one on the back. Now I could potentially have this arm be somewhere else, but you know, in the usual Spider-Man, you know, kind of pose, he's always putting his fingers on the ground. And I thought that, well, you know, you kind of make a tripod with this 3 things, and it still looks very dynamic because you're using like this line of action, and it looks really good, right? So these are the examples that I wanted to show you, you know, just to show you that when you are considering the center of gravity and the line of action, that you can pretty much, as long as, you know, the character is not doing something crazy like punching or dancing or something like that, you can figure out any pose. So, you know, line of action, center of gravity, those are the 2 things for a natural pose. So that's going to be it for this week. I'm pretty happy with the results. My name is Javi and I can draw. Thank you so much. If you like this video, like it, leave me a comment if you want to ask me something or suggest me something, subscribe if you like this channel. And that's it. I'll see you on the next week. Bye!